All right, making this video, I've been thinking of a way to contribute to the group, um, and thought I'd make a couple offers that would help some people out. For those that don't know me, I'm Mike Wozni, one of the coaches at the X3 group. Um, you won't see my posts quite as much as some of the other guys. I'm busy doing some other things with life, but I post when I can and try to make the content worthwhile. I just like other coaches, I have some things that are unique about me, make me special. Um, I love Johan's intensity and like the way Maycal has, for example, not saying discrediting any other coaches, but like the way Maycal has, played with loading different tension points and figuring little tweaks out to this and that. He's done a really good job with some of that, and I love to watch everybody contribute. So it's a big deal to me because John Jaquish and the X3 have done a lot of really great things for my life. So uh, keeping that going is important to me. And as some people might have known, I've battled with the bodybuilding scene trying to get some of the guys to wise up and get an X3 because the X3 can work for everybody, whether you're somebody's just starting working out or you've had injuries or you're a top level athlete. It can be applicable to anybody's life. Um, and based on some of my experience, um, a lot of people that follow me or know some things about me know that I've been on my deathbed a few times in the last, I'm going to say 7 years. The last couple have been good. Um, just dealing with some AFib issues, but that's not really so much a health issue as it is just an issue. All right. Um, but otherwise, I have a perfect bill of health. My blood work is beautiful. And part of the reason I have to get an ablation surgery is my blood pressure is 112 over 64 or something like that half the time. And the meds that they use to keep the heart rate down lower the blood pressure. So I was having issues where my blood pressure would be 80 over 60. And so I'm just going on with the surgery. Um, but other than that, body issues. I was a competitive bodybuilder and worked a lot of construction jobs. So there's a lot of guys that can relate to that in one way or another, even if they were just gym rats that beat the crap out of themselves and worked hard labor work or whatnot. And a lot of the bodybuilders are just completely ignorant to variable resistance, which is sad because there's no beat in variable resistance when it comes to standard weight training. Standard weight training is middle ground, subpar. You can get results, but man, the way to go about it is just way too damaging. It takes way too much recovery time, and the connective tissue and joints just take such a toll when we can load things much safer, get more reps with more load in a single set, and do far less volume that's far more productive. We can train more often, which we know. The more times you can recover and train again and recover and train again, that's going to speed everything up. But not only that, we're able to contract under more load safely. So we're activating more androgen receptors, releasing more growth hormones, creating IGF-1, things like that, and reaching a better point of hypoxia at a lower myostatin, which, for example, puts a ceiling on muscle growth. All these things are very important, and we need to know, even for power lifters, the X3 before you're training can cut down dramatically on what you're doing with weights because your muscular hypertrophy is now coming from variable resistance. We're just training eccentric loading and firing the nervous system, for example, for the skills of the actual powerlifting itself. And for longevity reasons, this is really important because a lot of power lifters, for example, are pretty beat up by their mid 30s. And this can help not only setbacks, but because you have lack of injuries, amplify the speed of results and do far less damage. So even long term, if you didn't have any huge injury setbacks and recovery, you're not going to run into the joint issues in your older age and can do these things longer and stay healthy. So um, John has really been a huge part of my life. Bodybuilders, for example, have been a kind of extremely, I shouldn't even say all bodybuilders because a lot of the really good bodybuilders are smart and they just give a shit about what works. They're not worried about their YouTube video or their bench pressing 400 pounds. They're worried about a competition and they want to win. That's what matters. But the gym rat, I guess, bodybuilder enthusiasts and so whatnot have been just completely assholes to John. And that upsets me because John is smarter than every one of those guys and obviously has something to contribute. And as time has come on, he's proven that. Uh, the X3 still to this day is healing. I was at such a degree of tightness that I used to call my buddy Phil, who I met John through. You know, God bless Phil. And I just said, with this body pain, man, I can't. There was a point where I didn't train legs for 2 years because I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs after work. I would limp up on one leg holding the banister. And after I would wake up, my ankles and knees would be so inflamed, I'd limp around and then have to go back to work. And um, as hard as it was for me, I was thinking of just giving up resistance training altogether. But, you know, John had taught us to work with balance and variable resistance, and I started doing so, and I slowly started getting better. And over the last 3 years, I am really close now to being in a better conditioned place than I was in my 20s as far as my joints and everything go. And I'm very excited about that. And I've been able to keep muscular hypertrophy the whole time I'm going through this process of they call body remodification. It's extremely painful. And from my neck was completely like all the tissue around my skull, everything was tight. My face was even getting pulled in a direction. My entire shoulder was frozen and jacked up. uh, my right hip. This all transfers down into the knees, the back issues. And many clients I have think that they can't even do deadlifts, and that's because primarily the deadlift is shit. When you're using weights in bodybuilding, we would always like look at Ronnie Coleman. Deadlifts are not needed in bodybuilding when it comes to weights, like because we're doing things like Romanian deadlifts or squats, but because we're trying to keep that back damage down. Because it's completely backwards. You're in the stretched position, the most vulnerable position, and then you're shock loading the muscles and joints and ligaments with the maximal amount that you're going to have to lift, and it's going to feel the heaviest at that point as well. And there's so much cumulative damage that goes on through the hips and knees and spine, and all the ligaments and tissue that hold the pelvic bone up. Things like it just it gets really bad, and the midsections just get super tight and beat up, and that just starts to transfer to everywhere else. Your hips are what basically controls every aspect. They're right in the middle, and it goes up to the shoulders and neck and down to the feet. um, that's where he had taught us the importance of the fact that we're bipedal and we need to focus on single leg work. That's why, I'd do the single leg Bosu ball squats, but the split squat with the X3 is something that I would never not do. And I'm at the point now where I have finally been able to start doing the front squat, and every workout I'm getting a little better. the tissue pulling down around my hips, I can only describe as like if you're trying to pull a really tight, wet pair of pants off under your skin, and you can feel it every workout just working its way down. All my legs are getting, the muscles are now getting more soft and pliable and less tight, and I'm looking at being able to hypertrophy finally again. My knees, they for a while there were popping and snapping, and because there was now movement in the joint, and now everything's strengthened up, and I'm really starting to learn what it's like to have mobility and flexibility and the relief. I have tissue popping off of my vertebrae every day, and my hips releasing, and then my shoulder. And I was on to go get carpal tunnel surgery. My carpal tunnel is gone now because that transfers from the shoulder down the arm into the hand. And most people treat it at the spot, but it actually originates in our hips, believe it or not, doing repetitive things, especially with your dominant side too much. So now the front squat, I've worked my way up to the elite band, and things are just happening that much faster. So I want to make this not only kind of just talking about my reasons for loving the X3 so much and some of the things that John's done for my life. You see the other coaches, the things that the X3 is a part of their life, and other people in the groups. And I know the group is extremely like it's part of John's life. So it's important for John has done so many things for me. I'm going to do something for John by doing things for the group. So I'm offering, if somebody, for example, has been on the fence for getting an X3, and you're somebody that maybe has been just lifting weights your whole life, and you got some problems and you're afraid to let go of the weights, or somebody that, has done construction work their whole life, never really worked out, but want to get into working out, and you're worried about things and learning some steps. Now, obviously, we have the 12-week program, but we all have unique things to us as people. So, uh, getting started a lot of times is the hardest part. Once you get started and you get some alternative ways to work around some issues you might have and get going on the 12-week program, from there it's you got your feet wet and we're going. But like I said, sometimes that's the point that guys are kind of on the cusp or whatnot. I want everybody to have an X3. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're somebody that's 90 years old that's trying to rehabilitate things, or a kid wanting to get into resistance training, or a family even, all the way up to professional strength athletes like strongmen, powerlifters, bodybuilding, which is more cosmetic, but there's multiple reasons to incorporate the X3 in your life. And then the average person, per se, wants to get in shape. The X3 is everything they're ever going to need. So, John, you see, uses it with elite athletes, NFL, track athletes, basketball. All of these athletes use the X3. Um, so, I've done a lot of work I understand that, like bodybuilders, for example, led the fitness industry since the beginning of time because they were always the leanest and most muscular, and everybody wanted to know what they do. They started gyms. And they've seen all the fads. We've had the Bowflex and the Nordic Flex and this and that and the Body by this and Thigh Master and whatever. And bodybuilders, I'm just going to say from a side that sees certain things, all those people get a middle finger and we'd laugh. Okay. But John was the first guy that actually came forward and had some serious, serious things to show us. And my buddy Phil was ecstatic to bring John into our little, um, what John would call the echo chamber, because we don't listen to anybody else. But I fortunately am one of those guys that I think everybody has something to offer and they're worth listening to. And um, I mean, John is one of the leading people in the world on body mechanics. He's helping NASA with things that, like, for the bone density and musculature of astronauts. He's got, as far as bone density goes, I think he's got to be number one guy in the world. Balance. And when it comes to athletics, this guy's, like, his knowledge is, it's priceless. So to be able to incorporate him and, like, my buddy at Emmerich Delzig have been using variable resistance since like the 70s or 80s, and the two of them have become friends. That's what I mean. Like, John has offered something to everybody that everybody needs to take note and um, adhere to. Okay, there's he, it's all fact. So and then I finally get some guys listening to me on the bodybuilding side. I'm like, this guy is so fucking smart. You guys are like, it's ignorant to not think that he can help in some way. And even with the dieting, I used to eat more of a Mediterranean style diet. John is the reason I fast once a week for 48 hours. And I even keep my protein a little higher and my carbs down. I always would eat whole food carbs, but I averaged 150, 200 grams a day. And yeah, I got lean on it and whatnot, but I was actually holding muscle back because the majority of those carbs were useless and they're just burning off as energy when I could have been eating more building blocks and still replacing my glycogen stores and been every bit as lean with a little more muscle. So that's where I have turned life around. We used to abuse anabolics, and now I know with proper TRT and variable resistance and more of a primitive diet and some fasting, we can take bodybuilding to another level that people have never seen before, and everybody's going to be healthy and happy and live long lives. All right. So that's one of my big passions, but I have obviously some experience and a skill set that makes me unique to the world. And I think it's something that's a gift to others because I have crawled in and out of every degree of the the body issues and pain and health issues and anabolics and training and tried every damn style out there, you name it. And I have friends that have expanded upon that. So I do realize, because I'm less than 1% of the human population, obviously I have some things that are worth throwing on the table. And I take things that are out there that I can apply to myself and make myself better as much as possible. So if, for say example, I got to watch the way I word this, because there are people that will try to take advantage of something like this. So if you've been on the fence about buying an X3 and you are listening to me, go buy your X3 and send me a receipt within the last couple of weeks that you bought an X3, just so I know you're not some guy that bought it 2 years ago on Black Friday sale and hasn't fucking used it, you know, and now you're just looking for some more free advice. That, no, I'm not going to do that. There's too many of those guys out there. But let's say you're just thinking on the cusp of, I'm afraid to let go of some weight training, or um, is this really worth the money? I can tell you it is. But if you have been on the fence, you buy the X3, you show me that receipt, I'll give you a couple-hour phone conversation where we can discuss things that you got some challenges body wise or goals, physique wise, things like that, and get you some at least good groundwork to get started, and then get your butt doing the 12-week program to learn the X3 and all of its benefits. Um, as you know, that's I think everybody needs to start out on that to get going. No matter what level you're at, just to learn them, just to learn it, and learn the consistency, and start applying more primitive eating into diets, things like that. It's really important that people get going on that. So that's something that, and then there's a lot of guys I help. Uh, I've turned into a guy that very, very much so am passionate about even guys' TRT being proper. So their hypothalamus doesn't stay shut down. They don't start having health issues because of that. The adrenal cortex suffers, pituitary output, even androgen receptor sensitivity, things like that. These are all things that a lot of guys, even doctors, and it's not their fault. It's it's like education problems, lack of information. But I have even friends that are doctors that I have helped with their TRT because their doctor was prescribing them 400 milligrams once a week, or 300 milligrams every 3 weeks, or 200 milligrams every 2 weeks, or 100 milligrams every 5 days. You know, if these sorts of, 200 milligrams once a week, or all of it's wrong. All of it's going to shut your hypothalamus down. You're going to have blood pressure problems. You're going to have some, the adrenal cortex is down. Eventually, you get less and less sensitive. Things like caffeine um, causes brain fog. We get depression, anxiety. The pituitary gland's messed up. Uh, Even aldosterone levels start getting thrown off, which probably part of the sporadic blood pressure problems. All of these things are not good. TRT is wonderful. It's something that I think any guy that's deficient needs to be on because it's health wise, it's proven that if you're at optimal levels and you're resistance training and eating good, you cannot beat that. That's going to keep you healthy till you're 100 years old if you do it right. So if you also have an issue like this, what I just said sound familiar? I will give a free consultation to help you walk you through what the process is to get to proper dosing without causing these sorts of issues and restoring your hypothalamus function, your adrenal cortex, pituitary, upregulating receptors, things like that. So you're more responsive to less and you're healthier, and longevity wise, that's what we're looking for, you know. Um, from there, I guess I will leave it at that. But even if you don't, if you don't trust where you're at for TRT, or you need TRT and need to be walked through it, I have a place. I got a very good place to get your TRT. I'll refer you there, and you get that started. So um, if either of these two things are something that are appealing to you, send me a message and we'll set it up and get you started. All right. So happy birthday from me, and I hope everybody's making their goals and kicking ass. And I'll post again soon. Bye bye.